Okay, so officially welcome now also to everybody who is watching this later. I am super excited about today's web. I kind of say this every time, but I just love all of the guests I have here, and it's been absolutely incredible this year so far. And I can't wait for next year. But Michelle and I know each other for really quite some time, and we work really closely together. So she is a dear friend and colleague of mine. We run, which some of you will have seen, we run the Somatic Toolkit for a resilient nervous system training together. But Michelle is also a facilitator of her own right, of course, and a body worker and a somatic experiencing practitioner. So quite a lot of us keep kind of talking about somatic experiencing as a supportive modality in all of this that we have to navigate these days. So if you have any questions at all on that at any point, Michelle is your go-to person. Michelle, please do leave your website, email address, and all of that in the chat later, or I can post it also. So I'm going to hand over to Michelle. We're going to talk about a topic that both of us uh, find very, very important and very passionate about. And Michelle is like, I think, the master of it because I admire Michelle for her clarity on her boundaries and sticking to them. I'm always so envious because, as much as I love boundaries and talk about boundaries, I'm also one of those people who might kind of change them as I go along sometimes, and that kind of defeats the point. So Michelle is so good with this. So I literally cannot imagine anyone better to talk about that with us today. So I'm going to hand over to you, Michelle.
Okay,
Take it
thank
away.
you. Welcome, everybody. And so I understand that this month within the membership is space holding. So I decided to speak about boundaries as being kind of like the essence of space holding or effective space holding, let's call it that, because, there's different kinds. Some are better than others, as you've no doubt experienced as a client. So, the first thing I'd like to say about space holding is that a skilled space holder creates safety. However, a felt sense of safety is very subjective. So, even despite our best intentions, sometimes it just doesn't work. Okay. And that is the nature of things. So, our job as facilitators is really to put as much in place as possible, clarity, etc. We're going to get to this, but also to understand at some point it's going to happen. You will get somebody who just, you know, you're not their person, and that is okay. And maybe they're not your person either in terms of your ideal client. So hopefully it becomes apparent at the beginning and not not too far down the line. But the idea is putting things in place so that you are attracting the people who you want to work with. So I don't know which fields you're all working in, and although my curiosity is trying to get the better of me, because we only have an hour and a half together, I'm just going to launch straight in to make best use of the time. I may be speaking in language that might not be meaningful for you in some terms. So if that's the case, please pop it in the chat, and Catherine will interrupt me in the moment. Okay. If any term I use is just not landing, or like, what is she talking about? Please ask. Okay, so that you're not in the dark. All right. Okay. So today we're going to explore the importance of boundaries for regulation and co-regulation, an embodied practice to find your own center, and also ways to hold space and aim to create safety for your clients before, during, and after your interactions. Okay. So some of this you may have thought about, some maybe not. So let's see. Hopefully it will be helpful for you. Okay, so first of all, what is effective space holding? Okay, the emphasis being on effective. So this is just my definition. Maybe you have your own, and variety is the spice of life. But my definition is being able to meet somebody fully in their experience without fixing, without rescuing, and while staying centered in yourself. So you're able to meet somebody else, really fully present to their experience, and you're in yourself at the same time. Oh, a little heart. So that's the what. And now comes the how. How do we do this? How do we have our own experience while we are fully present for somebody else? This is the real, it's kind of like, going to somebody who, an analogy of a good massage therapist. They're not just going through the motions, they're fully present. And they could be doing anything. You don't care at that point. You're like, they are here for me and nowhere else. Okay. So it kind of comes down to the same thing for facilitators in other areas. Just gonna have some water. So as the facilitator, you are the one who is responsible for setting and maintaining clear boundaries. Okay. It's your job. One of your jobs. Because if we don't do it, the client will not experience safety. And remembering safety is subjective. Sometimes our boundaries, people won't like them. Happened to me just the other day. It's like, okay, that's okay. So our boundaries, what we decide is nourishing for ourselves in our work, in our personal life, but here we're talking about work, is how we maintain our own felt sense of safety and our connection to ourselves while we are in relation to others. So a boundary isn't a way to distance ourselves or to or to remain apart. It's really about this interplay between people and how we stay with self and we can meet another. Okay. So in my view, it's absolutely essential that you're able to really stay grounded and centered in yourself so that you have what I call embodied clarity. So what this means is, if someone, depending on what field you're working with, I work mainly with trauma, so this is extra important. If someone's having a very difficult experience, for example, and you're able to meet them there, you join them, okay, but you don't merge, and you don't join them to the point where suddenly you're of no use whatsoever because you're also in a mess by now. Like, it's kind of like empathy gone wrong, it's or at the risk of, well, I don't know what I should say or not, because I often just sort of say things quite directly and hopefully it'll land. But sometimes I work with what would be termed highly sensitive people, and generally, what is happening is there is a real lack of boundaries and a constant merging with other people. So, this comes from somewhere. Obviously, it doesn't just, nobody's born like this. We are born very sensitive, but not in that way. So, embodied clarity about what's yours and what's theirs in any given moment. Okay, this is so, so important, because if you can't determine what's yours and what's theirs, you're not really able to really clearly be there for them in a supportive way without, some of your own stuff going on in the background where you're just thinking, oh gosh, or getting activated, so it's all even triggered because they're different. So really, having clear boundaries isn't just about, oh yes, no, I work on Tuesdays and not Fridays. No, it's really having a very strong sense of self, that, like, this is me and this is you, and we meet somewhere in the middle. Okay, somewhere that feels nourishing for both parties. So not merging, not fusing, different terms for it in different things. And in order to be in a place of embodied clarity, we absolutely need to be resourced, fully resourced and regulated. Because if we are not regulated ourselves or resourced, we certainly won't be able to offer any co-regulation for other people. And also, when we are resourced, okay, I'm not saying that you have to be 100% every time you give a session or give a class, but I would say 90%. Okay, depending on what you do. If you do something that's a bit more talking, you might get away with 50 or 60 occasionally. Some of you are smiling, you know what I'm talking about. But if you're working with trauma, you really need to be 90 and above. And if you're working with humans, you are working with trauma. Like, let's not pretend otherwise. But directly. So yeah. So it's really important we're resourced, because when challenging situations meaning people, events, when they arise, if we are under resourced, we are not going to manage them as well as we would if we are resourced. So boundaries are a way that we maintain resource for ourselves as well. And one of the other ways that we resource is to kind of do your own work, so that when you're working with other people, you're less likely to become activated or even triggered by things they say, do, I don't know, feel, whatever, So I always think about boundaries as being a way that we love ourselves and that we respect ourselves. So boundaries are about love and respect for ourselves, and they are the foundation for healthy and nourishing interactions with others. Okay. And actually, there's a very beautiful quote by Prentice Hemphill, which is very famous. So I'll read that for you now. And she says, they say, there's me messing up with my pronouns. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. Boundaries give us the space to do the work of loving ourselves. They might be actually the first and fundamental expression of self-love. So there's a lot of love in there. And you might be thinking, why is she talking about love? You know, I'm a facilitator. Like, this is my job. Like, I'm hoping with all my heart that you love your work. Okay. And that you love your clients to some degree, you know, depending what kind of work you do. But it's just to really emphasize that boundaries aren't a way to distance ourselves or to put up walls or to create separation. It's really that opportunity of what feels good to me, and how much do I want to give or not, so that I can meet you in your experience. Okay, it's about connection and safe relating. And I'd just like to say something about what a boundary definitely isn't. Because if you go to Instagram and you look at reels on boundaries, it is scary what is out there. And you know, you do come up against this. I was on the receiving end of somebody's boundary the other day. And essentially it was a misuse of the term, because it was a way of shutting down a conversation, that and not taking accountability by just saying, this is my boundary. You know, it's like this is my truth. It's like, okay, well, can we talk about that? You know, like where's the connection? Where's the meeting place? So a boundary is not something that shuts somebody else's thoughts, feelings, narrative down because it isn't convenient to you. This isn't a boundary. This is bypassing, could be called bypassing. This is not taking accountability. This is not being respectful. So, you know, bear this in mind, because it's out there everywhere on Instagram, boundaries and safety, you know. So I thought I might share some signs that may be indicative that you could possibly benefit from some clearer boundaries in your work. So perhaps you don't feel nourished by your work. Perhaps you might even feel exhausted or have experienced burnout. You might find that your clients message you frequently outside of sessions or class times, and you find yourself offering additional unpaid support and resent it. This happens. You know, maybe your clients are always late or try to extend their time with you. Maybe you allow that. Maybe clients overshare when you haven't asked. Or perhaps you have clients who are cancelling last minute and you're not getting paid. Okay, that's a big one. Especially in Portugal, you know, it's quite a last minute culture. So just some thoughts to get us started. Are there any questions about this part before I move to or reflections before I move to a practice for more embodied center?
You know, I always thank you for all of this. I'm always really curious to understand why kind of boundaries has ended up with like a negative association, like something that maybe we are afraid of even, or it's a kind of, it's just not a good thing to have for some reason, or we're afraid of. And I always wonder, I'm always curious to kind of see where that is really coming from.
Yeah, well, for me, in the work I do, boundaries comes up a lot, and many people are not modeled healthy boundaries, because if somebody has healthy boundaries, they really don't need to speak them. You feel it, you know. It's like in their very presence. But if that isn't modeled, I know it instantly. For example, when I have an intake form, someone writes on their form, and I think, oh, here we go. I just know, because the page is like this long, and I'm like, okay, there's oversharing. Okay, I know we're going to have to work on boundaries. I just know it. And many people, the word literally gives them the heebie-jeebies. It's like, oh, like, oh no, oh really? Do we have to talk about that? But
Mm.
I absolutely love boundaries. I mean, love them.
I know you do. I know you do. I'm just, because I think poor boundaries,
Yeah,
we could also, not categorically, I think that it's actually quite complex, but I
yeah,
see that at times there's also a sign of a tendency of fawning because you're just you're not in a place and capacity to say no to something, but it's just the easier option for your nervous system to be pleasing everyone and overgive and overshare and overindulge and whatever. So that links right back to the nervous system conversation, I guess.
yeah. And it's easier in the moment. I mean, any response of the nervous system is obviously uh, a learned response to the environment. So if you are a fawner, a people pleaser, that's come from somewhere. You've had to do that to survive, to keep yourself safe at some point in your life. It's a learned behavior, and it can be unlearned. It's possible and recommended. But if that's what you, but fawn is a difficult one. It isn't only the nervous system. It's really it is very much a learned behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I obviously love the kind of the quote that you brought about self-love, and we talk about it very often as kind of it should be at the top of the list of your meaningful self-care regime very often, right? Because it really brings this clarity forwards into your relationships, and clarity also gives safety. So actually, it is it isn't the distancing, and you already spoke to this. It's not like shutting anything off or away or building a wall between ourselves, but it gives the framework within which we can connect more deeply because we've established that framework of what is okay and what isn't okay, and so then we can go. So it's actually there's more depth and more meaning in connection with healthy boundaries.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any other questions or thoughts? No? Okay, so let's. I thought we might. I had this practice in mind, and then I thought, oh, I could make it a little bit more juicier by getting you to consider something specific in your work life where you could benefit from having clearer boundaries. Maybe one of those signs that I mentioned earlier is applicable to you, or maybe there's something else that I haven't mentioned. And just have a little moment and think, no, I could, implement something, but it's something that you're not quite comfortable doing, or maybe it's difficult for you to name your price, or I don't know. So have something in mind. I'll give you, like a minute to kind of have something in mind that whenever someone asks you, you're just like, oh, you just want to like shrivel up or get smaller or disappear entirely. It isn't easy. Okay. All right. So even if you don't have something in mind, that's okay. You can still benefit from this practice. So if you are seated on a chair, I invite you to come towards the front edge of the chair. Okay. So that your spine can be vertical without being supported, because we need a little bit of space to move around. Okay. If you're seated on the floor, maybe have like a meditation cushion or something where again the spine can be vertical in a relaxed way. I'm just going to shuffle forward as well a little bit. And you want to be able to really place your feet on the floor comfortably. If you can't do that, you grab some books or something else. Okay. Okay, so take a moment. You can have your eyes open or closed as you wish. Take a moment to feel your seat. So whichever parts of you are in contact with the chair. And also taking a moment to reposition your body parts in relation to one another so that you can be as relaxed as possible in an upright position. Notice the contact of the feet with the floor. And looking inside, just having a scan, just seeing where you feel your center is in this moment before we do anything. Let's place a hand there, two. And see if you can also have a sense of your midline. So the midline between left and right, away from the top of the head all the way down through the pelvis. And then in your own time, in your own way, I invite you to start to let your body move just a little from left to right. This is a movement that we often do unconsciously when we're looking to find more stability, feel more center. So moving left to right slowly so that you really have a sense of this is left, this is right, and this is center. So as we move away from center, we sometimes get more clarity about what center is. As long as you need to really see if you can find this midline between left and right. And as you do this, you might notice some signs of settling, some signs of little ways the nervous system shows that it's dropping into more safety, perhaps yawning, perhaps sighing. Perhaps a spontaneous deeper breath. When you feel you've found your midline, center between left and right, notice if it kind of passes through what you previously felt was your center. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And if this is really clear for you, we will continue with a different axis. But if this midline is not so clear, you have the choice. You can either explore the other axis or stay with the left and right. Okay, so you decide what is most beneficial for you. And for those of you who it's clear or who want to explore the next one, have a sense of everything that is above you and everything that is below you. This could be to your ceiling and your floor, or it could be the sky and the core of the earth. You decide. Just having a sense of above and below and where they meet inside you. Where above and below meets inside you, does it intersect with the midline between left and right? And just like before, you can stay with above and below and or left and right. Or you can also explore forwards and backwards. Okay, so perhaps you can move the body forwards and then backwards past the other midline, if you were like a transverse. So having this movement is to give us the sense of where is in the middle. So where is the center of forwards and backwards? Again, as you explore this, looking to find the middle place, the center. Notice if it intersects with the other two or not. Once you've found almost centered place between above and below, forwards and backwards, left and right, take a moment to inhabit this area of your body that feels like your center. Notice perhaps it's in a slightly different location than you previously felt. No. Maybe you might like to place a hand there or two hands. Perhaps inhabit it a little bit more. And how is it for you to have an experience of being centered in yourself, hopefully, grounded, connected to the floor, the seat, and connected to yourself? And if you revisit your initial, what should we call it, specific thing that perhaps could benefit from more clear boundaries, or it's a little difficult for you if you were to approach this problem, let's say, sticking point, from this place of centeredness, how might you move forward differently? Does it feel easier to take a step forward from this place? As we come back into this space rather than maybe navel gazing. Take a moment to reorient to your space. So let your eyes just wander around your room. These practices, although short, they can take us into deep spaces. So it's good for us to really take time to land back in our external environment too. It's like one eye on the outside, one eye on the inside. Okay, and I'd love to hear if you have anything you'd like to share about this practice. Is it helpful? Can you maybe pop in the chat? Speak out loud. That's okay. Yeah, you can speak out loud. Oh, I can't hear you. No, we tried.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Sorry for being late.
I lost you again. Can you hear Kat? No. Pop it in the chat. It's okay. Sorry. We can't hear you for some reason.
Michelle, also your very soft, beautiful voice is a little bit difficult to hear. So
thanks for letting me know. I'll try to talk louder. Anybody else like to try speaking out loud?
Hi. I always rush, and when you said like, "Oh, let's find a middle," I was like, "Absolutely, I know exactly like what I need to look for." And then just taking that little time to move around, it ended up being slightly in a different place, and it definitely felt different from what I had thought at the beginning. So a good message of also not rushing and actually taking the time to step back. It also kind of reflects in my life where I'm quick to please without actually finding that little space. So yeah, it was nice to put those two things together. Thank you. I will try and it kind of practice it more. Thanks.
So welcome. Yeah, this is a great one, especially if you know that your tendency is to always say yes or something. Just take a moment. Check in with yourself first and then come from that, not from default, from a more embodied place. I'm eagerly anticipating Rena's question. Is there anything there, Kat? Because I'm not getting any previews or anything.
Rina, are you able to maybe just put your observation into the chat? And we can just come to that a bit later.
Can I share quickly? I hope you hear me.
We do.
Yes, thank you. It was very interesting for me to see that the three lines we mentioned, above and below, left and right, and in front and to the back, they did not intersect. So I think we started with left to right and above and below, and I could feel the place where they intersect. But then when coming back and forth, what I realized, the line does not, it only intersects one of the other lines, but not the other one. So it gives a bit of a surface of the center, which I had the feeling makes me less vulnerable because I have a broader center, let's say. Yes, so a broader space where I feel safe in my boundaries. And it made me feel a bit comfortable because I could move within these boundaries. I'm not stuck into one point with it was interesting. I didn't expect to be at a different point. I thought the center is the center, it's one. But then you said there might be a few more, and then I started feeling relaxed and feeling being aware of the zone, let's say, of the broader space and not of the point. And I felt good. And then I found it interesting what you said when if you ask if we are the person to say maybe too fast yes or not, but it's rather yes. I think that very often the most challenges come from the yes and from the no, and I felt that I found it very interesting, and I think I in connection to the exercise, I had the feeling that sometimes I say yes, and it's not 100% convinced yes, because I sense some going out of my safety zone and going into an area where probably there are challenges, and through these challenges I could grow. And it's just because we did the exercise before, I felt like even if I say yes, where I was not 100% convinced, I said a yes that still comes from a center, from knowing my boundaries, and not a yes without no support, or a yes out of fear, or a yes out of panic, or a yes out of whatever other feelings. Yeah. So I found this is what I felt, yes, through the exercise and afterwards, and I feel a bit reassured now that even if I say yes, and it's not 100% one, as long as it connects and it feel a place somewhere in this area of the center, it's probably a necessary yes, because it brings me into these new zones. Yeah, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. I'm so pleased for you. You've discovered something new about yourself.
Yeah.
So we do have the message from Rina. It was very interesting finding above and below. At first, it didn't come together, and it was like an open space in my belly. With time, discovering I found my diaphragm moving with my breath was this connection between below and above. And she's just added, I just came out of a situation that was making me feel insecure. After the exercise, I feel my clarity again. I feel aligned and with my opinion and decision, even if it has a high price.
Ooh. Ooh, ah. This is great. We just need to connect to center, and then things become clear. There's always things to discover, and we just need to take a little time. Especially with big decisions. This practice in itself can be very stabilizing and grounding. So I hope you can put it to good use. And if you are working with other people who in a context where they're exploring boundaries, or this can be a very good one for people to really. You might find it might take a whole session just left and right. I do have to just say that, or above and below, or I was kind of speeding up because I know you're all experienced facilitators, so you got the fast version. But sometimes it may take a whole session for someone to really get a sense of what is the center. Okay. So, is there something else in the chat, Kat? I can see like a no. Okay, all right, I ignore it. So I thought what I do for the last part is, just to share some ideas and about some ways that you can hold space for others and aim to create safety. Aim to create safety. It's always our intention to create safety for your clients before, during, and after your interactions. So, your first interaction with your clients is before you even know they exist. Okay? They find you. Someone tells them about you, or they find you on socials, unless you're me, because I avoid that like the plague. They find your website, they find you on ChatGPT. Okay, so before you've even met them, they're deciding if you are safe enough for them. Okay, because they're a human being, they have a nervous system. Their nervous system is always looking for safety. Thankfully, it's all below the level of conscious awareness, otherwise, we'd drive ourselves crazy. So, it's really worth considering all of your messaging on socials, all of your messaging on your website, so that as much as possible, you are providing clarity and transparency about what you offer. What your services are, where you offer them. The amount of times I go to a website and I'm like, this looks great, but where are you? Or do you do online? Like, what you offer, when you offer it, where you offer it, how they book, what your price is. This is, I can't even tell you. If I go to a website and there are no prices, I am gone. There's no transparency. That doesn't feel safe to me. So that's just me. But I would say there's probably quite a lot of people like me out there. Name your price. I want to know. Even when you expect to be paid, and what your cancellation policy is, what your privacy policy is, aside from being a legal requirement, a privacy policy. It lets people know that you have taken the time to consider how you store their information. This creates safety. As boring as it is, having a privacy policy creates safety. So consider all the ways that you can create clarity and transparency in your work. From the outset, you want to say something, Katrin?
Yeah, Elsa was just adding into the chat that's all of this is a really good question. In Portugal, we don't used to do this, but she's been wondering a lot about this. Elsa, what specifically don't you normally do in Portugal? Like any of it, prices or something specific? No pricing. Yeah, no prices.
Oh, yeah, right. Is there
I
a
mean,
reason?
I'm completely with you. If somebody doesn't disclose their pricing, I'm gone. The other thing I want to add, I want to see a picture of your face.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like if you are this anonymous kind of, I don't know, and then stock images and all that. I'm just like, but who are you? I want to see you.
that's a good one.
I've got to see your face.
Yeah.
I want to see your face, Elsa. Yes.
Do also want to see your face, Elsa.
No, but on the website, if on the website there is not a single picture of you, I'm like, I'm also gone. I'm like, no.
Me too. We're ruthless.
Yeah. With this, we really are.
No, really, like, but consider how you must. This is our view as clients, right? It's like this is our experience. What brings safety for us as clients? Right? For me, it's clarity and transparency, and a face. Okay. For you, there might be other things that you absolutely need. You might need to know their whole list of qualifications. So if you know that some people will want that, provide it for those people, because you're providing a sense of safety. I mean, I'm saying that now because I'm like, I just did mine the other day, but up until now, I really haven't had one because I'm like, yeah. But
the other thing I find really also helpful is like this sort of what to expect in a session, how it unfolds, so even like if you need to bring special clothing or if there is music or, I don't know. To me, a yoga class is without music, but yeah, for some reason, yoga classes these days always play music. And to me, I would have just loved to know that before because I could have just chosen not to sign up. As an example, is something a bit silly maybe, but we also have these preferences, right? What makes us feel comfortable and more welcome and, all these things. So
yeah, all the whole classic essential oils, like the incense, like all these things. Like if you use that stuff, tell people. So there's as least or as little surprises as possible. It's a bit like a recipe. You follow the things and you get a good outcome, kind of thing, like baking. People know what to expect. It's really important. And then you have to obviously deliver. You don't kind of say all these things and then don't deliver. And so this is even before you've met somebody, they are choosing whether they want to work with you or somebody else. So make it as easy as possible for them. Tell them a little bit about yourself so that they can get a feel for you. Offer a discovery call. Many people convert from discovery calls because they get the chance to see you, if not in the flesh, but they see your face, they hear your voice, they see you moving. Consider it, especially if you're working one-to-one. Because it's all about safety. Someone gets the chance to meet you before they commit to anything. Okay, so when they've decided to work with you, they've chosen you, there's something in them that is like, oh, she's safe enough. And I'm talking about safety because the nervous system is running the show, basically. So they feel enough safety to choose you. So when you are the chosen one, it's so important, I've mentioned this before, that you are resourced and that you are in your capacity so that you can really show up for them without having to, deal with your own stuff at the same time. Okay. As much as is humanly possible. We all have stuff going on with, this is this is life, right? Life is always happening. There's always challenges, but the more resource we are, the more we'll be able to, it's like having if we only have a little pan, right? And then we try to cook like a kilo of rice in a tiny little pan, it's not going to go well, okay? If we have a huge pan Like I cook in like a big mum pan, like a pan literally like this. Doesn't matter how much I put in that pan, it's going to take it. And the nervous system's a bit like this. If we're regulated and our baseline is like the safety zone, let's say, and we're well resourced, whatever life throws in our pan, we've got it. You know, we're not overspilling and, you know, like in a little pan. So, you know, less mess to clear up, basically. It's a bit of a funny analogy, but I think we've all cooked in too small a pan and had a spillage. So everyone gets what I'm talking about. Okay, so being resourced, having like what I would call fundamental regulation in the nervous system, so you can be in your capacity. And just like we did before, you know, this practice, this axes practice, just having this sense of taking a moment to ground yourself or to center yourself, especially if you're working one-to-one, so you have this embodied clarity. What's yours? What's theirs? Something comes up, you know, especially if it depends how you're working. You know, I work a lot with resonance, so I feel things in my own body that my client is experiencing, for example, and I am absolutely clear that's not mine. It's so essential that I know that that's not mine in that moment, because it helps me track them. Okay, so really being clear, what's yours, what's theirs, where do you meet in the middle? And I mentioned it before about doing your own work, so you're less likely to be activated. But if you are activated by someone during a session or during a class, first of all, take responsibility for it. It's your stuff. You have a difficult client, you know, and they are, you know, inside you're like, you know, that's on you. That's your stuff. Thank them for showing you where you need to do the work. You know, it's like difficult clients, you know, they really show us where we still need to do work, where we still need to show up for ourselves. So, and take a moment to regulate yourself. You can even name it with your clients. Oh, that was a lot for me. I just need to take a moment. This creates safety, believe it or not, because the other person realizes, oh, they're human, first of all. They're just like me. Okay, everyone wants to feel like they're not the only one who gets activated. Okay, and they know how to look after themselves, so they can also show up for me. It's so profound. If you just take that moment, oh, that was a lot for me. That brought something up for me. I just need a moment, and come back to yourself. Okay, thank you. We can continue, for example. This creates so much safety. And you're showing up that you're holding space for yourself as well as for them. Okay. What else creates safety in your space holding? Meeting your client where they're at and being open to feedback. So depending what field you're working in, feedback might be in the moment because you're going down some track and they're like, no, this is not landing for me, or this is meaningless for me, or I can't connect with this, or I can't connect with my body, or I just don't get it, you know. And yeah, be like, oh, okay, all right, thank you for telling me. Not immediately, oh, they're a difficult client. Okay, they're not in the difficult client bin. No, they've just told you something really valuable. And if someone gives you that feedback, it means you've created enough safety for them to be true to themselves and to share it with you. So well done. You know, you can take this as a compliment that someone's actually going to tell you what they really think. Ideally, everything you do beforehand, you create that environment, you know, beforehand. But being open to feedback is really important to creating safety. I'm not a fan of the expression staying in your scope. Like it is important, but I think it's there's something a bit patriarchal about it, and a bit sort of, I don't know, you hear certain groups of people use this as if to say that only them are the ones that can deal with X, Y, and Z, you know?
I think I was just asking what staying in your scope means, or knowing your scope of work.
So I'll give you an example. So like, you know, someone might say, I'm a mental health professional. So their scope is to work with someone's mental health. And if you were to go with them with some chronic pain, to stay in their scope means that they are going to refer you to somebody else for chronic pain, and they are not going to start trying to do X, Y, and Z to help you feel better. Just an example. It's really not a very good one, but. And the same conversely, if you're a body worker, you know, and you don't have a trauma training, for example, you may refer to somebody if something comes up that is more, I don't know, more than you feel is appropriate for you to work with. You would refer out. So hopefully that's answered that. It's clear.
Not quite, but I'm just going to try and find a German translation for it.
Okay. I mean, I'm trying to be careful because, you know, I don't want to diplomacy is not my strong point. So I try to tread carefully, but I don't always manage it.
I mean, like I think we speak about it often, though, especially in the context of trauma, right? So we work with humans who work with trauma, and we all have healing modalities here in some kind of way. And for me, part of being trauma informed also means that I know when I am not the best placed person to support that client, and to be extremely well networked, to have really good referrals, whatever it might be, whether it's a nutritionist or a somatic experiencing practitioner or whatever it is. But there are certain areas where I may have an opinion and I can support, but it needs a certain specialist to work with them, and I'm just not best placed. And so, yeah, maybe that's it's a softer way of saying it, away from like maybe the slight edginess of the terminology. I don't know.
Yeah, I really don't like the terminology. Also, because it's often, I'm often, not often, but in our SE training, for example, there's a thing in the manual about, because really some countries they only allow psychologists to do it, or psychotherapists, or and so there is a little bit of this hierarchical thing, but actually the body workers have the edge because they know the body, they feel the body, they are more embodied, like they absolutely have the edge. But there is a little bit of that, stay in your scope,
in German it's Arbeitsumfang.
Yeah.
I think a good example is also, Rina, you're a nurse, right? So nurses are allowed to do certain things, but are not allowed to do other things like lay a catheter or whatever it is. And actually, it would just make more sense for nurses to be doing a lot more than they are allowed to do because it's not in their scope of work. So that's a classic field actually where that's often plays into it. Sorry. So
Yeah, no, that's okay.
that's I think that's clear.
That brings clarity is good. So, and as Katrin mentioned, you know, like having a good referral network so that, you know, if you don't feel you're the best placed person, you know, to find a gentle way to refer out to somebody who could perhaps be more helpful. This, you know, has to be done right because otherwise it can compromise the safety. Timing is everything, but for sure it, you know, it can be beneficial. And if you are holding space for people in a training capacity, you know, maybe consider having a clear complaints procedure, for example. Just throw that one in there in case any of you are trainers. And, you know, there's so many ways while you're actually with someone, but really fundamentally is your own nervous system, your own capacity. Because really, this is what allows us to hold space effectively. Coming back to that original, albeit only my definition, you might have your own, of being able to meet somebody else in their experience while staying fully connected to your own. Okay. And I'd just like to add a few things for afterwards, after you've given a class or given sessions. Maintain confidentiality. This is a big one. You know, you don't chat to, you know, friends or even peers. Like, this is why we have supervisions or perhaps mentoring. You know, but even when you take, you know, a case or whatever to people who are there to support you, who have more experience, etc. You know, you don't name people, you don't give so many details away that someone, you know, because especially like in Lisbon, for example, it's a small place and someone's like, oh, I think I know who that is, you know. But you just give, you know, enough so that the person can get a sense, but not so much as, oh yeah, you know, this, that, the other, they work at this and they, you know, they live with that person. And you know, and some, I've even heard people saying names and I'm just like, oh gosh, no. So also, you know, maybe consider following up if it's a one-to-one, if you're giving a one-to-one session, you know, following up, especially after the first one. I think it's just a nice touch. You know, just checking in after your first session. How are you? People are always, I don't know, people feel cared for, you know, and this creates safety. Because if you are working with someone over a period of time, I don't know how you all feel about it, but I continue to hold space in a very broad sense for that person until such point as they say, I think, you know, we've resolved or whatever, you know, thank you, bye-bye, the space holding continues. So, you know, for me personally, I actually ask people, if you decide I'm not the person for you or you want to pause, please just let me know. Because then I stop to hold space for them, you know. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You know, this is how it is, especially with trauma. And also continue to look after yourself with your training, with mentoring, with supervision if that's appropriate for you, or the peer group community. You know, this is it's really important as facilitators that we are also held. Really vital, but you already know that because you're all here. Right? You already got that piece. So yeah. So this is my take on space holding and boundaries and how to look after yourself and create this safety as much as is possible for others. So any questions or thoughts? I'm happy to hear. Elsa's sideways. By giving you things to think about.
Okay, now go for it.
I try it. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Don't touch anything.
Well, what you just said at the end is like really important for me. The space holding continues because for me, the people, I don't have so many clients yet, but yes, I still stay in contact, and I remember also the first client who was paying me. I didn't know her, and I mean, she stayed in my mind, and I didn't really check in later on, and I was still unsure if I should do it or not. And with her, was so much time I didn't do it, and yeah, and it was still something like in my mind. I haven't really figured it out, and I mean, I stay in contact with them, and but I didn't really have like a setup for me right now. So that is really helpful for me to like figure it out how I want to do it, to have like a clear thing for me. So thank you very much.
Welcome. So
Yes,
welcome.
yes.
Yeah, it's often an unthought or unconsidered part, but you know, we're human. We are wired for connection. We care deeply about people, and it's natural that I mean, I think it's natural that we continue to, you know, if someone comes into our field, so to speak, that we're connected in some way. So it's good to have clarity around, okay, do I continue to hold space with this person or not? You know, as has our time together come to a close.
Yeah.
Make some space inside.
Yeah.
So, and how you do that will look different for everybody, obviously. Yeah, thank you.
There are a couple of things that Michelle spoke about that I wanted to just kind of highlight to you all again, since we touched on them and spoke about them to some degree, in fact, last week during our monthly call. And one was this, giving a bit of an outline of what is to unfold in the session up front. And in a way that is giving clarity and structure and all of those things, but it also supports you maintaining the boundaries and the containment in the session. And it really didn't take very long, but maybe you did notice that Michelle repeated the three things that she was going to cover with you in today's webinar. Boom. It was just that. This is what we're going to do. Check, check, check. And also, she's already kind of setting a little bit the tone. And then, depending on what the circumstances are of the wider picture, of the bigger picture, you might need to keep coming back to it or make it even clearer and really set this as stronger containment. Or here, no, of course, it's kind of, you're also happy to let a little bit of free flow happen and all of this, but you decide then in that moment. what is like what's good for you, but to establish it right at the start sets you off really well because then it's already out there, and then we don't have to kind of backpedal or anything like that. So we spoke about that already last week, remember? And the other thing, and it's a really great addition and a very, very important thought, we also spoke about that difficult client. Some of you were there or maybe listened to the recording. And to really check in, no? It's like if we get activated by that difficult client, that's our shit. Like we need to look at that, right? And we might have that pattern to always sort of reflect back or, kind of deflect. No, what's the right word here? But to, kind of basically push it back to the other and not own it. But these things are important. And yes, there are certain behavioral patterns that might come out again and again and repeatedly with that so-called difficult client, and that might be what we spoke about, the only way that they might be able to show up in the first place. And then there's different ways that we can manage that and that we can deal with that. But if we feel activated by it, we've got to have a little chat to ourselves, and figure out what's going on there. So it's a really good reminder. Thank you for that.
No such thing as a difficult client.
Thing as a difficult client.
It's like, I think of it as like, when you hear dare I say it? God, I'm just gonna say it. I'm like policing myself. When you hear men say, "Oh, she's too emotional," and I'm like, no, dude, you just do not have the emotional capacity to meet her in her experience. There's a difference. If anybody's too anything, no, it means, we need to step up our game so we can meet them in their experience.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like that, the myth of the difficult client. And some people are just plain difficult, I have to say, that, but through no fault of their own, bless their heart, as they say, they can't help it.
They have a lot of needs, and maybe there are ways for us, especially in group settings, that we can take care of it so that they feel like they have been seen, that they have been heard. And sometimes all it takes is that they get offered a chair and that they have that little bit of fuss about them. I have a couple of those clients and students, and they come to like these workshops and retreats and stuff, and I'm always like a little bit on guard because I know that person just needs that extra little bit of fussing. But I'm like, okay, within reason, that's just what I do, because then she feels heard and seen, and that's all they need. And then their nervous system can settle. So I know that that is what's kind of needed with them. And to then work with that person directly, or maybe on that, if you want to call it issue, it's not an issue, but like on that specifically, then that is kind of outside of the scope of the group setting, right? So that's also like that's my boundaries also. I'm not going to like now give this person a one-on-one kind of session on this thing. It's not my place to say, hey, you need my help. It's, it would be like inappropriate, but also, I only let them ask for special attention to a degree because they're also in a group setting. So then you set the boundaries. This is clear. This is as much as I can give you done. Yeah. All of this to do with boundaries. So anyone else wants to add anything or have any other questions? I'm just going to put Michelle's website here into the chat for you all. Check it out. Look at that. It's like popping up with a preview image and everything. And you can also find Michelle's contact details on that. If you are interested to reach out to her, she also works online with somatic experiencing. So
it says it on the front page.
Is it on the front page? Excellent. There you go. It's online in Portugal.
I stand by what I say.
But this is one thing I always say, this process is a never-ending process. So I don't think I will ever get it completely right, because part of it is not only that we try our best in the moment, but that we also keep trying and we keep reflecting. How can I do this even better next time? Because there was something that wasn't quite okay, or, and then you learn something else. And I think Michelle and I are, for example, for the training that we run, we have all, so many things on our list that we really try to implement. And there's always going to be something else that we could do or that we need to educate ourselves on that we are not the hottest on because it's not our natural area of expertise, or because it's a new insight to something or a different perspective on something that is coming up, and we have to keep learning about these things too. Also, maybe we just didn't get it right every time. And there is just simply things that maybe, oh God, okay, do I have to do that as well? So yes, you have to at some point, maybe also look at that, and it keeps going and going and going. So it's a never-ending kind of process. You keep going. I think that's also part of what we need to do.
And it's okay to make mistakes. Like I made a mistake at the beginning. I used the wrong personal pronoun. I just named it. No, oh, that was a mistake. Like I'm human.
Yeah.
It's good.
Um, and owning it means, you own it and then you move on. It's also not a big deal, right? So that's another thing. I already mentioned Michelle and I run the Somatic Toolkit for Resilient Nervous System training. It's a 60-hour CPD together, and the next cohort will be online only for a change. So it means that people can join from anywhere and everywhere. And I think I already put this in the message in the WhatsApp group a little while ago, but it also was at the footer of my emails. But anybody who is in Elevate will have a 15% discount on that as one of your membership perks. So have a look if it resonates. There's still a few spaces left. Maybe you want to join us.
First module is boundaries.
First module is boundaries. Exactly. So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we shall be going into this even more. But yeah. Other than that, it's 7:30 now. 8:30 for some of you, I know, or probably even later for some of you, I don't know. So I hope you have a lovely rest of your evening. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us here today and for sharing all of your boundaries.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And we don't really have an official extra activity before Christmas. We're slowing down a little bit now for this month. That doesn't mean there isn't still something coming your way, so do keep an eye. I am in touch. But this is the last live online event for this year. And please note in your diaries. I haven't actually created the thing yet, Rina, sorry, and thanks for pointing that out. But 2nd of February, it's not 2nd of February, it's 2nd of January, right at the start of the year, we have the little astro setting the intentions and focus for the first quarter of the year with Martina. So if you want to come to that, I would definitely share the link and the information on that in the group and otherwise. So that's coming up very soon, but mark that in your diary. 2nd of January, Friday in the evening, 6 o'clock. Have a lovely evening and a good rest of your week, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you.
joining tonight.
Goodbye.
Good to see you.